Did you know Abraham had a black and beautiful wife? Today's video is about the story of Keturah, Abraham's forgotten and hidden second wife. We'll explore who Keturah was, how she came into Abraham's life, and why her story has been largely overlooked in biblical narratives. Stay tuned to uncover this fascinating tale of love, legacy, and hidden history. Imagine discovering a long-lost chapter in one of the world's most famous stories. A chapter that adds depth, intrigue, and new characters to a tale you thought you knew by heart. That's exactly what we're diving into today as we explore the story of Keturah, Abraham's second wife, a woman whose existence surprises many and whose legacy has been largely forgotten by time. You've probably heard of Abraham, the patriarch of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. You might know about his wife Sarah and their miraculous son, Isaac. But did you know that after Sarah's death, Abraham remarried? This often overlooked fact introduces us to Keturah, a woman whose story adds a whole new dimension to Abraham's life and legacy. So, who was Keturah? How did she come to marry one of the most important figures in religious history? And why is her story so often left untold? These are the questions we'll be answering today as we unravel this hidden tale of biblical proportions. Let's start at the beginning. The story of Abraham is well known. God called him to leave his homeland and promised to make him the father of many nations. With his wife Sarah, Abraham had a son, Isaac, in their old age. This miraculous birth is a cornerstone of the Abrahamic faiths. But what many don't realize is that Abraham's story didn't end there. After Sarah's death, when Abraham was well over 100 years old, he took another wife. Genesis 25:1 states simply, Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah. This brief mention opens up a world of questions and possibilities that have intrigued scholars and believers for centuries. The name Keturah means incense in Hebrew, which has led to various interpretations of her character and role in Abraham's life. Some see her as a symbol of sweetness and purity, while others view her name as indicative of her actions, being as pleasing as the scent of incense. But who was Keturah really? The Bible doesn't provide much information about her background. We don't know where she came from, how old she was, or how she met Abraham. This lack of detail has sparked numerous debates and theories over the years. One intriguing theory suggests that Keturah was actually Hagar, Sarah's handmaid who had earlier borne Abraham a son named Ishmael. This idea, found in some Jewish traditions, proposes that after Sarah's death, Abraham reunited with Hagar and gave her the new name Keturah. Supporters of this theory point to the similarity in the way both women are described as being taken by Abraham. However, many scholars disagree with this interpretation. They argue that Keturah was a separate woman, possibly a Canaanite or from another nearby tribe. The fact that the Bible introduces her as a new character, rather than explicitly stating she was Hagar, lends weight to this view. Regardless of her origins, what we do know is that Keturah bore Abraham 6 sons: Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. This is significant because it shows that even in his extremely advanced age, Abraham continued to fulfill God's promise of becoming the father of many nations. These sons of Keturah would go on to become the ancestors of various Arab tribes, extending Abraham's lineage and influence far beyond Isaac and Ishmael. The Midianites, for example, play a significant role in later biblical narratives, interacting with the Israelites during their exodus from Egypt and beyond. But if Keturah was so important, why is her story often overlooked? There are several reasons for this. First, the biblical narrative focuses primarily on the line of Isaac, as he was the son of promise through whom the Israelite nation would come. This emphasis on Isaac and his descendants often overshadows the stories of Abraham's other children. Secondly, Keturah's story is brief. She's mentioned only a few times in the Bible, and these mentions are concise. This lack of detail makes it easy for readers to skip over her story or forget about it entirely. Lastly, the timing of Keturah's marriage to Abraham can be confusing. Some interpretations suggest that Abraham married her after Sarah's death, while others propose that he may have taken her as a concubine earlier and only elevated her to wife status after Sarah passed away. This ambiguity has led some to downplay her importance in Abraham's life. Despite these factors, Keturah's story is significant for several reasons. First, it demonstrates Abraham's continued vitality and his ongoing fulfillment of God's promise to make him a father of many nations. Even in his old age, Abraham was expanding his family and spreading his influence. Secondly, Keturah's sons represent the expansion of Abraham's legacy beyond the Israelites. Through her children, Abraham's descendants spread across the Arabian Peninsula, creating new tribes and nations. This fulfills God's promise that Abraham would be a blessing to all peoples, not just the Israelites. Thirdly, Keturah's story adds depth to our understanding of Abraham as a person. It shows him as a man who continued to live and love, even after the loss of his beloved Sarah. It paints a picture of a patriarch who embraced life fully, right up until the end of his days. But what was life like for Keturah? While the Bible doesn't give us many details, we can make some educated guesses based on what we know about the time and culture. As Abraham's wife, Keturah would have held a position of respect and authority within the household. She would have been responsible for managing domestic affairs, overseeing servants, and raising her children. Given Abraham's wealth and status, it's likely that Keturah enjoyed a comfortable life materially. However, Keturah's position was probably not equal to that of Sarah. Genesis 25:6 mentions that Abraham gave gifts to the sons of his concubines, which may include Keturah, and sent them away from Isaac. This suggests that while Keturah and her children were cared for, they were not considered equal heirs with Isaac. This disparity highlights the complex family dynamics that must have existed in Abraham's household. Keturah, coming into the family late in Abraham's life, would have had to navigate relationships with adult stepchildren and establish her own place within an already established family structure. Moreover, Keturah would have been aware of the special status of Isaac as the son of promise. How did this affect her relationship with Abraham? Did she feel pressure to produce children who could rival Isaac's position? These are questions we can only speculate about, but they add a human dimension to this ancient story. The legacy of Keturah and her sons is another fascinating aspect of this tale. While Isaac's line would lead to the Israelites, Keturah's descendants spread out across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. The Midianites, descended from Keturah's son Midian, play a significant role in later biblical narratives. For example, Moses, after fleeing Egypt, found refuge among the Midianites and married a Midianite woman. Later, the Midianites would become both allies and adversaries to the Israelites at various points in their history. This intertwining of destinies shows how the different branches of Abraham's family tree continued to interact long after his death. The other sons of Keturah are believed to have founded various Arab tribes, though tracing these lineages definitively is challenging due to the passage of time and limited historical records. Nevertheless, the idea that these diverse peoples shared a common ancestor in Abraham has sometimes been seen as a potential source of unity among different Middle Eastern cultures. Keturah's story also raises interesting theological questions. If Abraham is seen as a model of faith, what does his marriage to Keturah teach us? Some interpret it as a sign of Abraham's continued trust in God's promise of numerous descendants. Others see it as a purely human action, showing that even great figures of faith had ordinary aspects to their lives. For some feminist interpreters, Keturah's story is important because it gives voice to one of the many women in the Bible whose stories are often overlooked. While we may not have many details about her life, the mere fact of her existence and her role in expanding Abraham's family is significant. In some Jewish traditions, Keturah is admired for her perceived piety and good deeds, as symbolized by her name meaning incense. Some commentators have suggested that Abraham chose her as a wife because of her virtuous character, seeing in her qualities that reminded him of Sarah. It's worth noting that while Keturah's story is brief in the Bible, she has captured the imagination of later writers and artists. In various works of Midrash Jewish biblical interpretation, as well as in some Islamic traditions, Keturah's character is expanded upon and given more depth. For example, some traditions portray Keturah as a skilled herbalist, knowledgeable in the use of incense and perfumes playing on the meaning of her name. Others depict her as a wise woman who brought her own unique gifts to Abraham's household. In Islamic tradition, while not mentioned by name in the Quran, some commentators have identified Keturah with a woman referred to as the Mother of Arabs, emphasizing her role as an ancestress of many Arab tribes. These varied traditions show how Keturah, despite her limited presence in the biblical text, has continued to intrigue and inspire people over the centuries. Her story has been a canvas onto which different cultures and traditions have projected their own values and ideas. As we conclude our exploration of Keturah's story, it's clear that this often overlooked woman plays a crucial role in the broader narrative of Abraham's life and legacy. Her marriage to Abraham in his old age, the 6 sons she bore him, and the descendants that came from this union all contribute to fulfilling God's promise to Abraham that he would be the father of. Keturah's tale reminds us that even the most familiar stories can have hidden depths. It encourages us to look beyond the main characters and consider the supporting cast, the people whose brief mentions can sometimes open up whole new worlds of understanding. Moreover, Keturah's story invites us to consider the complexity of family relationships in the ancient world. It shows us that blended families, with all their challenges and dynamics, are not just a modern phenomenon, but have existed throughout human history. In the end, the story of Keturah, Abraham's forgotten and hidden second wife, is more than just a footnote in a famous patriarch's life. It's a reminder of the rich tapestry of human experience that makes up our shared history and religious traditions. It's a prompt to look deeper, to consider the untold stories, and to appreciate the complex web of relationships that shape our world. As we close this chapter of biblical history, we're left with a greater appreciation for the depth and complexity of these ancient narratives. Keturah's story, brief as it may be, adds color and nuance to our understanding of Abraham's life and legacy. It reminds us that even in the most well-known tales, there are always new discoveries to be made, new perspectives to be gained, and new lessons to be learned. So the next time you hear the story of Abraham, remember Keturah. Remember the woman whose name means incense, who came into a patriarch's life in his twilight years and left a legacy that would spread across nations. Her story may be hidden, but it is far from forgotten. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you like this video. If you do, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more videos.